I never thought that a simple act of digging a hole could unravel the very fabric of our reality, shattering the illusions we held about the world around us. It all began on a typical autumn afternoon, with a crispness in the air that signaled the approaching winter. The leaves had begun to turn, painting the neighborhood in hues of orange and gold, a picturesque scene that belied the darkness soon to come. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the ground, hinting at the mysteries that lay beneath the surface. As I routinely stood by my kitchen window, sipping my steaming cup of coffee, I observed my neighbor, Harold, going about his usual business. Harold had become a shadow of his former self since the tragic loss of his beloved wife, Clara. It was as if the vibrant colors of his world had faded to a single shade of gray. The transformation was heartbreaking to witness. Where there was once a lively and spirited man, now stood someone lost and adrift in a sea of loneliness. His cheerful laughter and spirited conversations had been replaced with silence, leaving him to wander aimlessly around his yard, consumed by grief. His daily routine had become predictable, almost sorrowfully so. Each morning he would shuffle out with a gloomy demeanor, aimlessly drifting around his garden, seemingly hoping to stumble upon solace. The garden, once meticulously maintained, now mirrored his inner turmoil, overgrown and neglected. The flowers that Clara had lovingly tended to were now withered and forgotten, a silent testament to the void her absence had left behind. I often watched him from my window, noting how his walks around the garden seemed to offer no solace. One day, however, something out of the ordinary caught my eye. I noticed Harold with a shovel, digging a hole in his backyard. At first, it seemed like a peculiar endeavor, perhaps a gardening project to distract him from despair. I thought it was a way for him to channel his sorrow, a physical manifestation of the void in his heart. The hole initially seemed innocent enough, a mere disturbance in the earth that mirrored the turbulence within him. Yet, as the days passed, I couldn't help but notice a change. The hole grew larger and deeper, and something about it called out to me. By then, it wasn't just a mere hole anymore. It became a gaping chasm with an aura of mystery that gripped my consciences. There was an unseen force, an inexplicable urge, pulling me towards this growing void. I felt an irresistible compulsion, like a magnetic pull, that I couldn't resist, to join him in his endeavor. This pull was more than curiosity. It was as if the hole whispered secrets that only we could unveil. It emitted both an allure and a mystique that became hard to ignore with each passing day. Succumbing to this unseen force, I decided to approach Harold. As I climbed over my fence into his yard, Harold noticed me and welcomed me with a sad smile. There was a silent acknowledgement between us, a shared grief that needed no words to express our mutual understanding. We worked side by side in silence, the rhythmic sound of shovels piercing the earth a solemn tribute to Clara. Each thud of the shovel into the soil echoed like a heartbeat, binding our shared sense of loss. As the hole expanded, our endeavor did not go unnoticed. It drew the attention of our other neighbors. One by one, they arrived, their curiosity eventually giving way to a collective fascination with the hidden depths we uncovered. Digging became our ritual, an escape from the mundane tragedies of our lives. With each scoop of earth, we cast aside a bit of our burdens. Each stroke was liberating in its mundanity, yet profound in its implications. There was a certain camaraderie in the dirt and sweat, a shared purpose that unified us in our grief and longing. It was as if we were digging not just into the ground, but into the very essence of our shared sorrow. The bond we formed was unspoken, yet strong enough to transcend words. The air around us seemed charged with an unspoken anticipation, as if the earth itself held its breath in expectation of what we might uncover. As we delved deeper into the core of the earth, We sensed an otherworldly presence lurking beneath the surface, a whispering in the shadows that tickled the edge of our consciousness. Subtle vibrations and murmurs challenged the silence. The hole had become a gaping maw, a portal to the unknown. It seemed to hold secrets beyond our wildest dreams and fears. Each layer unearthed hinted at mysteries far beyond our comprehension. And yet, we could not stop. There was an allure, a siren's call to keep excavating the mysteries below. The deeper we dug, the more we became ensnared in its mystical charm. The night came when we finally breached the threshold. I still remember the eerie stillness of the air, as if the entire world hushed in anticipation. A chill crept through the air as the final layers of soil crumbled away, revealing a cavernous abyss hidden beneath our feet. At that moment, the abyss gazed back into us. From its depths emanated an eerie glow, casting our faces in ghostly pallor. It was a light not of this world, a spectacle that both repelled and enthralled us, a siren's call that captivated our senses, pulling us into its enigma. The glow was both beautiful and terrifying, a manifestation of our deepest curiosities and fears. Our initial curiosity quickly turned to horror as grotesque creatures began to emerge from the darkness. What we had uncovered was far more sinister than we could have imagined. They were unlike anything we had ever dreamed of, shadows given form, nightmares conjured into reality. Within these creatures lurked the manifestations of entropy and calamity. Panic set in as we realized the extent of our folly, the terrible mistake we had made in tearing open the veil between worlds. Our once sensible actions became reckless as we faced the grim outcome of our endeavor. What followed was chaos, a chaos that erupted with devastating force. The neighborhood that had once been our sanctuary was now a battleground. These creatures were not of flesh and blood, they were manifestations of our deepest fears, primal and relentless, shadowy forms that seemed to reflect the darkest recesses of our souls. The idyllic scenery of our tranquil neighborhood was shattered under the relentless onslaught. Those who fell into their grasp were lost to us forever, swallowed by the very darkness we had unleashed. It was as if each one of us faced our own internal demons, externalized and voracious, an external battle that mirrored the turmoil within. In the aftermath, our quiet community lay in ruins, a testament to the darkness that resides not only in the earth, but within each of us. The lawns and streets that had been filled with neighborly laughter were silent, echoing only the ghostly remnants of the horrors we had witnessed. Echoes of terror reverberated through the silence, a chronic reminder of the scars left behind. As survivors, we were haunted by the memory of that abyss, the spectral echoes of those we had lost and the knowledge of the depths we had dared disturb. The hole was eventually filled, a futile attempt to erase the terror it had wrought. A semblance of normalcy returned as grass and flowers now cover the ground, a deception that belies the lurking horror below. Yet, a silent tension lingers in the air, an awareness that the place we had disturbed was merely covered, not conquered. We carried on with our lives, but deep inside, we knew the truth. But I cannot forget. In the silent hours of the night, when the world is still and quiet, I still hear the whispers calling from the deep, and a part of me wonders if the darkness within is waiting for the chance to rise again. In our quest to uncover the unknown, we had laid bare the abyss within ourselves, and the cost was unimaginable. The dual realization of the power and peril of our actions became engraved in our souls. This revelation remains with me, a chilling reminder of our capacity for destruction and the shadows that linger in the corners of our souls. The events that transpired serve as a haunting testament to the mysteries we sought to unravel and the unmistakable truth that lies within, an unsettling mirror to the void in our hearts that mirrors the void in the earth. It serves as a cautionary tale. The darkness of potential lies within every choice we make, and sometimes the secrets we dig up are best left buried. The weight of our actions continues to bear down on us, a constant reminder of the thin line between curiosity and catastrophe. This experience has etched itself into the fabric of my being, a lingering shadow that colors every decision I make. As I move forward, I carry with me the lesson that some doors are better left unopened, some mysteries better left unsolved. Yet, the allure of the unknown still whispers to me, a siren song that tugs at the edges of my resolve. In the quiet moments, when the world is still and the shadows stretch long, I find myself drawn back to that place, to the secrets we uncovered and the darkness we unleashed. It is a part of me now, a constant reminder of the depths we dared to explore and the price we paid for our curiosity. The hole may be filled, but the void it left behind lingers, a testament to the power of the unknown and the darkness that resides within us all. The lessons learned are etched in the silence of our nights, a haunting reminder of the potential for darkness that resides in each of us, waiting for the moment to rise again. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. I've always been a night owl, finding comfort and solace in the quiet solitude that the dark hours of night afford. When the world is asleep, my mind becomes more alive, attuned to the subtle nuances of silence and shadow. The night offers a unique tranquility, a chance to reflect and explore thoughts that often remain hidden during the bustling hours of daylight. In those hushed moments, I feel a connection to something larger, something that whispers secrets only the darkness can hold. The stillness of night allows me to delve into the depths of my imagination, to wander through the corridors of my mind with no distractions. So, when I landed a job as a night cleaner at an ancient church nestled squarely in the heart of the city, I relished not only the peace that accompanied it, but also the opportunity to explore a place steeped in history when no one else was around. The idea of wandering through a building that had stood for centuries, witnessing the passage of time, was thrilling. The pay, an astonishing $40 an hour, was merely the icing on the cake. Who was I, after all, to turn down such a lucrative opportunity? The chance to earn a substantial income while indulging my nocturnal tendencies seemed too good to be true. Little did I know then, the secrets harbored within those grand, stone walls were far deeper and more chilling than I could ever have imagined, ones that would ultimately chill me to the very core of my being. On my very first night, as I walked through the enormous, intricately carved doors of the church, I was immediately struck by its grandeur. The high, vaulted ceilings seemed to touch the heavens themselves, while stained glass windows depicted scenes of otherworldly beauty. These windows cast colorful patterns that danced across the floor as moonlight filtered through, creating an ethereal atmosphere that felt both sacred and mysterious. The air was redolent with the rich, earthy scent of old books, a tantalizing fragrance that emanated from the library as I moved about performing my designated tasks. This aroma seemed to whisper stories of the past, tales preserved within the pages of those ancient tomes. Each step I took seemed to echo with the footsteps of those who had walked these halls before me, each breath filled with the weight of history. But as soon as the clock's hands aligned at midnight, the atmosphere underwent a subtle yet unmistakable transformation, taking on a more sinister and foreboding tone. Shadows seemed to grow longer and deeper, swirling around as if they possessed a life of their own. The once comforting silence began to feel oppressive, as if the very walls were holding their breath. It was at that eerie hour that I first heard it, a faint, ethereal melody drifting wistfully through the ancient halls. The haunting tune seemed to emerge from the very walls themselves, played, it seemed, on a distant organ hidden somewhere out of sight. Puzzled and intrigued, I ventured towards the source of the melody, only to find the music fading away into the stone walls as if swallowed by their ancient silence. I shrugged it off, attributing the experience to the fatigue of a long day, and continued trudging through my nightly cleaning tasks. Yet, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it, something that beckoned me to listen more closely. The music lingered in my mind, a ghostly refrain that refused to be forgotten. But the mysterious music was tenacious, becoming a regular occurrence, each night slightly louder, slightly more insistent, as though it sought my attention. One particular evening, while I diligently polished the wooden pews, I thought I caught sight of a figure draped in long, black robes lurking just beyond my peripheral vision. My heart raced as I spun around quickly to face whatever might be there, but the sanctuary was as empty as a tomb, the silence so profound it pressed against my ears. The figure, if it had been real, vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only questions in its wake. Curiosity piqued and perhaps spurred by the unnerving encounters, I began to inquire about the church's long and storied past, directing my questions to Father Solomon, the enigmatic priest who presided over the church's affairs. Father Solomon was an imposing man, his presence almost austere, his sharp, penetrating eyes gleamed with an unreadable intensity that made one feel exposed in his gaze. His demeanor was both commanding and elusive, as if he held secrets he was unwilling to share. Yet he remained evasive, dismissing my questions with curt, dismissive answers, and offering only vague reassurances about ghosts and tales from centuries past. His words seemed to dance around the truth, never quite revealing what lay beneath the surface. However, the more he brushed off my inquiries, the more compelled I felt to uncover the truth hidden within those walls. It became an obsession, a puzzle I was determined to solve. The church, with its towering spires and shadowed corners, held a mystery I could not ignore. One particularly still and suffocatingly quiet night, I stumbled upon a strange, intricately carved blue door in the basement, a place I had never before thought to venture into, let alone clean. The basement itself was a labyrinth of forgotten relics and dusty corners, a place where time seemed to stand still. The door was locked tight, and I couldn't help but notice an unexplainable coldness that seemed to seep through the cracks around it. Driven by equal parts dread and unrelenting curiosity, I resolved to find a way inside, determined to unravel the mystery that surrounded it. The door seemed to call to me, a silent guardian to secrets untold. It was as if it held the answers to the questions that had been plaguing me, a key to the enigma that had ensnared my mind. My resolve to unravel the mystery only deepened with each passing day. I scoured the church library, peeling back the layers of time through dusty old records and fragmented documents, searching for any clue that might illuminate the enigma before me. The library was a treasure trove of knowledge, its shelves lined with books that chronicled the church's history and the lives of those who had walked its halls. It was there that I happened upon cryptic texts carefully hidden within the pages of an ancient tome. The writings within spoke of a being of light, a radiant entity trapped by dark rituals and machinations performed under the guise of holiness, of a pact sealed in blood by those who deceptively preached benevolence yet harbored sinister intentions. The words painted a picture of betrayal and hidden agendas, a history long buried beneath layers of deception. The more I read, the more the pieces began to fit together, forming a picture of a truth that was both terrifying and compelling. As another week slipped silently by and my sanity began to fray at the edges, my awareness seemed to attune itself to the pulse of unseen forces all around me. The apparitions, fleeting though they were, became more frequent, and the music transformed into a constant, unrelenting harbinger of terror. Whispers now echoed through the winding corridors, forming words that sent chills down my spine. Release us. The plea was both a command and a cry for help, reverberating through the very fabric of the church. It was as if the building itself was alive, a sentient entity crying out for liberation. It was then that, While searching for anything that might shed more light on the mystery, I discovered an aged, dust-covered key hidden beneath a loose floorboard in Father Solomon's sparsely furnished office. The office, a place of authority and secrecy, held an air of solemnity that seemed to echo the priest's own demeanor. The discovery felt like destiny, a moment that had been waiting to happen. That fateful night, as violent rain lashed against the stained glass windows, a cacophony of nature's own haunting melody, I finally descended into the depths of the basement, my heart pounding with each cautious step I took. With trembling hands that betrayed my rising fear, I inserted the key into the blue door's lock. What lay beyond defied comprehension. Chained amidst a circle of glowing, carved hieroglyphs was a creature of ethereal, breathtaking beauty, an angel, its luminous wings shimmering and reflecting the dim, eerie light of the basement. The sight was both awe-inspiring and heart-wrenching, a vision of grace and suffering intertwined. Our eyes met, and in those depths, I saw sorrow so profound and incomprehensible, so ancient and pleading, that it pierced my soul. The angel's gaze implored me to act, to grant the freedom it had been so cruelly denied. It was a moment of connection, a silent understanding that transcended words. The angel's presence was a testament to the divine and the profane, a being caught between two worlds. Understanding dawned upon me with the eerie clarity of a nightmare realized. The church was not a sanctuary of holiness, but rather a veritable prison. Father Solomon and his acolytes were the imprisoned angel's earthly guardians, their duties burdened and tainted by unspeakable acts carried out under the disingenuous guise of spirituality. The revelation was both shocking and enlightening, a truth that shattered the illusion of sanctity. The very foundation of the church's existence was built upon lies and deceit, a facade that had concealed the darkness within. Compelled by an urge I could neither define nor resist, I released the locks that bound the angel to its prison. The church seemed to shudder, as if it possessed a life of its own, and the walls groaned in protest. Flames burst forth, seemingly from nowhere, consuming the ancient wood and stone with unyielding, ravenous ferocity. The heat was intense, the air thick with smoke. As I stumbled backward, my vision blurred by the chaos unfolding around me. The inferno was a cleansing fire, a purging of the sins that had tainted the sacred space. Amidst the chaos, the angel ascended, its form a blazing beacon against the tapestry of the night sky, a sight so glorious that it seared itself permanently into my mind's eye. The inferno raged unchecked, and in that singular moment, I understood that the church's just retribution had finally come to pass. The sins of its keepers were being purged. The price exacted was absolute. It was a cleansing, a reckoning that left nothing untouched. The church, once a symbol of faith, was now a testament to the power of truth and redemption. As the monumental structure crumbled into ash and ruin, I found myself standing alone in the cool embrace of dawn, the angel long gone, and the truth buried beneath the still smoking remnants of what once was. The world seemed different, altered by the night's events, yet eerily the same. What became of me in the time that followed, I cannot truly say. Some nights, as dreams carry me unwillingly back to that place, I still hear the whispers, the music, echoes of a past that steadfastly refused to let go. They haunt me, reminders of a reality that defied explanation. The memories linger, a constant reminder of the darkness that can hide within the light. What I had uncovered consumed the church, its flames licking greedily at the vestiges of its existence, and for better or worse, I found myself free at last. Yet, deep inside, I knew the experience had left an indelible, immutable mark on my soul. My name, my former life, all seemed to have been left behind in the midnight sanctuary, a place where echoes of the past continue to linger, forever watchful, bearing witness to truths that were both a blessing and a curse. The memories remain, a testament to the power of belief and the darkness that can hide within the light. The experience had changed me, reshaped my understanding of the world and my place within it. The church, with its secrets and its revelations, had become a part of me, a chapter in my story that would never fade. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. Growing up in a sleepy rural town, the summers seemed to stretch out endlessly before us, each day brimming with possibilities and the promise of adventure. Our town was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where the days were long and filled with opportunities for exploration. My childhood companions and I were inseparable, bonded by the shared thrill of exploration and the simple joys of youthful freedom. We were like a tight-knit band of explorers, navigating the vast playground that was our town. Our playground was vast, encompassing the rolling fields and dense patches of forest that surrounded the town like a protective embrace. These natural expanses offered us countless hours of entertainment and discovery, where every tree and stream held a new secret to uncover. We would spend hours wandering through the woods, inventing stories and games that only we understood. But it was the old Johnson farmhouse at the edge of town that truly captured our imaginations and drew us in like a magnet, a mysterious beacon calling us to adventure. The farmhouse had been abandoned for as long as anyone in the town could remember. Its windows were boarded up, and its once vibrant paint had faded and peeled under the relentless sun, giving it a forlorn and forgotten look. The structure stood as a testament to time, a silent witness to the years passing by. To the adults, it was nothing more than a dilapidated structure, a relic of the past with no place in the present. They saw it as an eyesore, a decaying reminder of bygone days. But to us, it was a gateway to endless make-believe, our very own haunted house where we could play out the echoes of our dreams and fears. The mystery of the place was irresistible, and it became the setting for countless adventures in our young minds, a stage for the dramas and fantasies we concocted. We imagined it as a castle, a fortress, a place where anything was possible. One particularly hot summer, when the air hung heavy with humidity and the cicadas sang their relentless, droning song, we decided to take our games into the cool, shaded mystery of the farmhouse. There were 5 of us that day, each eager, each blissfully unaware of the secrets waiting within those crumbling walls. Our hearts were filled with anticipation, our imaginations running wild with the possibilities. We shrugged off the usual stories told by locals, tales of strange happenings and ghostly sightings, dismissing them as mere superstition. After all, what did we have to fear in our youthful bravado? We were invincible, or so we believed. The stories of ghosts and strange noises only added to the allure, making the farmhouse seem even more like a place of magic and mystery. Our plan was simple, a game of hide and seek. The thrill of this familiar game was heightened by the eerie ambience of the farmhouse, each creak of the wood and whisper of the wind weaving a tapestry of spooky delight that sent shivers down our spines. The old house seemed alive, its very walls whispering secrets as we moved through it. I volunteered to be the seeker, eager to test my friends' hiding skills and my own courage. As I counted, face pressed against the rough bark of an ancient oak in the front yard, they scattered, their laughter fading into the whispers of the forgotten house, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the anticipation of the chase. I could feel the excitement building inside me, a mix of fear and exhilaration that made my heart race. And so, with excitement bubbling in my chest, I set off to seek them out. The interior of the house was cooler than outside, a damp chill that raised goosebumps along my arms and sent a shiver down my spine. The smell of mildew and dust coated the air, disturbed by our presence and mingling with the scent of old wood and forgotten memories. I found the first of my friends behind an old, moth-eaten sofa, his giggle giving him away in the otherwise silent room. Slowly, I unearthed them one by one, each hiding spot more creative than the last, until only one remained, adding to the suspense and thrill of the hunt. Each discovery was a small victory, a testament to our friendship and shared adventure. We laughed and teased each other, the camaraderie of the game bringing us closer together. It was as I crossed the threshold into what must have once been a parlor that the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The air felt thicker, charged with something unseen yet tangible, wrapping around me like an invisible cloak. I called out, expecting my last friend to reveal himself with a groan at being found, but silence met my words. I listened intently, the old house settling around me with its own language of groans and sighs, but another sound emerged from the quiet, a soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming lightly against a window pane, breaking the silence with its persistent rhythm. It was a sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, its origin a mystery. The sound was both intriguing and unsettling, drawing me deeper into the house. Curiosity piqued, I followed the sound deeper into the house, toward a hallway that disappeared into shadow, its length stretching before me like a dark tunnel. My footsteps echoed softly, mingling with the steady tap-tap-tap that grew neither louder nor softer, maintaining its eerie consistency. Something about its rhythmic nature set my nerves on edge, an uncanny reminder of a heartbeat, alive and constant. I glanced back, half expecting to see my friends behind me, but the hallway stood barren, empty except for the shadows that danced in the corners. It was as if the house itself was watching, waiting for my next move. The sense of being watched was palpable, adding to the tension and excitement. The tapping led me to a door at the back of the house. It was slightly ajar, revealing a sliver of the room beyond, inviting yet foreboding. As I nudged it open, the hinges groaned like an ancient beast stirring from slumber, the sound reverberating through the stillness. Inside, the room was empty, save for dust motes dancing lazily in the shafts of sunlight piercing through the cracks in the boarded-up windows. And still, the tapping continued, now noticeably coming from above, drawing my gaze upward with a mix of dread and curiosity. The sound seemed to beckon me, urging me to uncover its source. I felt a pull, a compulsion to follow the sound to its origin. An attic. I realized with a chill that my final friend must have climbed up there, though how I hadn't a clue. Carefully, I found the stairway, its narrow ascent curling upward into darkness like a winding path to an unknown world. Each step creaked underfoot, the noise joining the persistent tapping above, creating a symphony of suspense that echoed in the confined space. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat matching the rhythm of the tapping as I climbed. The journey up the stairs felt like a journey into another realm, a place where the rules of the ordinary world no longer applied. As I emerged into the attic, the dimness swallowed me whole, a stale darkness pressing close like a thick fog. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, to pick out the shapes of forgotten trunks and cobweb-draped rafters that filled the space. But the attic, like the room below, was empty. The tapping had stopped, leaving a silence thicker than the dust that coated every surface, a silence that seemed to hold its breath, waiting. It was a silence that felt alive, as if the very air was charged with anticipation. The stillness was almost oppressive, a tangible presence that filled the room. A whisper of movement drew my gaze to the far corner. My friend's wide eyes met mine, his face ashen, part fear and part urgency, a silent plea for understanding and action. He stood frozen, pointing toward a low window set into the gable, his finger trembling slightly. I followed his gesture, squinting into the muted light, and what I saw there stopped my heart cold, a chill running down my spine. It was a sight that defied explanation, a vision that would haunt my dreams. The moment seemed to stretch out, time slowing as the reality of what we were seeing sank in. A shadow, darker than the dim surrounding it, unspooled slowly against the window, its form amorphous yet undeniably present, like a living entity. It seemed to pulse, growing and receding, like a living ink blot against the sky, a creature of darkness and mystery. At the same moment, as if realizing it was seen, the shadow withdrew, slipping into obscurity beyond the glass, leaving us with the memory of its presence. It was as if the shadow had acknowledged us, marking our encounter as significant. The encounter left us shaken, a reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond our understanding. We didn't wait. Words were unnecessary as we rushed down the stairs, gravity doing most of the work in our haste, our feet barely touching the steps. We burst into the afternoon light, gulping the warm, fresh air like swimmers resurfacing after too long beneath the waves, the sunlight a welcome embrace. The others, having heard our panicked descent, gathered around, eyes wide with questions we couldn't answer, their curiosity mingling with our fear. The experience had bonded us, a shared secret that set us apart. We were united by what we had seen, a moment that would forever be etched in our memories. In hurried whispers, we recounted what we'd seen, a tale met with disbelief but also a latent understanding, a shared recognition of the unknown. There are things we instinctively recognize as true, fears as old as humanity itself, deep-seated in our collective consciousness. The shadow in the window became one of those for us, a shared secret, a pact of silence sealed by the enveloping warmth of the sun on our faces, a bond forged in fear and wonder. It was a moment that would linger in our memories, shaping our perceptions of the world. The experience changed us, leaving an indelible mark on our souls. The game ended that day. Our adventurous spirits dimmed slightly, shadows more than just tricks of light and imagination. Though the rest of the summer unfolded in the usual joys and mundane routines, the memory of the farmhouse lingered, veiled in a mixture of curiosity and dread, a shadow cast over our youthful innocence. It was a reminder of the boundaries we had crossed, the mysteries we had glimpsed. The farmhouse became a symbol of the unknown, a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary met. Even now, years later, adulthood hasn't dulled the vividness of that summer. The recollection of our innocent game turned sinister remains a touchstone, a reminder of those boundaries better left uncrossed and the mysteries that dwell in the places forgotten by time. The footsteps echoing in the hollow, the presence at the window, are threads in the tapestry of memory, woven into the very fabric of who I am, a part of my identity that refuses to fade with time. The experience is etched in my mind, a testament to the power of imagination and the enduring allure of the unknown. It serves as a constant reminder of the magic and mystery that the world holds, waiting to be discovered by those willing to look beyond the surface. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. The evening air hung thick and heavy, one of those stifling August nights that seemed to press down with a weight that was almost tangible. It felt as though the very atmosphere was working against any attempt at comfort, conspiring to make each breath a laborious task. The humidity clung to my skin, a constant reminder of the oppressive heat that seemed to seep into every pore. For months, I had been tormented by relentless headaches, a persistent dull ache that seemed to mirror the tumult within my mind. They were like a constant drumbeat, a reminder of the chaos I couldn't quite escape. My mother, ever the concerned parent, had urged me to rest, to find relief in the cool, artificial breeze of our air-conditioned living room. She worried endlessly, her voice a constant presence urging caution and care. Yet, the walls of our home seemed to close in around me, suffocating in their proximity, and the mere thought of confinement was unbearable. The air inside felt stale, the space too small to contain my restless thoughts. I felt an overwhelming need to escape, to run, to feel the solid pavement beneath my feet, to break free from the prison of my own thoughts. As I tightened the laces on my running shoes, my mother's voice echoed in my mind, a gentle yet persistent plea for caution. Her words were filled with love and concern, a reminder of her constant vigilance. Despite her worries, the urge to flee, to find solace in motion, was overpowering. It was as if the act of running could somehow shake loose the tension that gripped me. I stepped out into the oppressive night, the heat enveloping me like a smothering blanket. The air was thick, almost tangible, wrapping around me as I moved. The streets lay silent, the usual hum and bustle of the neighborhood now reduced to a mere whisper, as if the world itself had paused. The quiet was eerie, a stark contrast to the noise that usually filled the night. I began my run at a measured pace, each rhythmic strike of my feet against the pavement offering a brief respite from the throbbing in my head. The repetitive motion was soothing, a temporary escape from the pain. The darkness of the night served as both a refuge and a shield, concealing me from the world and, in turn, hiding the world from me. The shadows were comforting, a cloak that allowed me to move unseen. As I ran, I concentrated on my breathing, the steady in and out that kept me anchored, kept me sane amidst the chaos. The rhythm was a lifeline, a thread of normalcy in the midst of turmoil. Then, cutting through the silence, I heard it, a sound that pierced the night like a sharp blade. A baby's cry, faint yet unmistakable, drifted through the trees lining the path. The sound was jarring, unexpected in the stillness. I halted, my heart thundering in my chest, the sound both unsettling and strangely compelling. It was an unusual place for a child, especially at such an hour, and the cry was imbued with a desperation that tugged at something deep within me. It was as if the cry reached into my very soul, stirring emotions I couldn't quite name. I found myself hesitating, torn between the instinct to assist and the fear of the unknown. The weight of my phone in my pocket felt significant, a connection to help that I was reluctant to utilize. The device was a lifeline, yet using it felt like crossing a threshold I wasn't ready to face. Yet, the cry came again, more insistent, and I found myself dialing the police, the words spilling out in a hurried jumble. My voice was shaky, the urgency clear in every syllable. They assured me that help was on the way, but as I ended the call, a chill crept down my spine. The sensation was unsettling, a prelude to something I couldn't yet understand. It was then that I heard another sound, a voice, soft and intimate, whispering my name. It seemed to emerge from the shadows, enveloping me like a fog. The voice was familiar, yet distant, as if it came from a place I had long forgotten. This voice spoke of things long buried, secrets I had struggled to forget. It knew of my headaches, of the guilt gnawing at my insides, of the darkness I had tried so desperately to escape. The words were like a mirror, reflecting truths I had hidden even from myself. Fear gripped my throat, yet curiosity, that persistent companion, urged me onward. I needed to know, to understand what was unfolding. The voice vanished as swiftly as it had appeared, leaving me alone with the oppressive silence of the night. The absence was profound, a void that echoed with unspoken questions. The remainder of my run was a haze, my mind awash with thoughts and fears. The path blurred beneath my feet, each step a struggle against the tide of emotions. When I finally stumbled back home, the house seemed altered, as if the shadows had shifted in my absence. The familiar space felt foreign, as if it held secrets of its own. My mother lay asleep, her gentle snores a soothing reminder of the normalcy I yearned for. Her presence was a balm, a touchstone in a world that felt increasingly uncertain. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind replaying the night's events in an endless loop. each moment replayed with vivid clarity, a tapestry of images and sounds that refused to fade. When morning finally dawned, I was filled with a restless determination. The light brought no answers, only a resolve to seek them out. I knew I had to return to that place, to face whatever lingered in the shadows of my mind. The pull was irresistible, a call to confront the unknown. The daylight offered scant comfort as I retraced my steps along the path. The sun was bright, yet the clarity it offered was deceptive. The trees stood silent, the air heavy with the promise of revelations. The stillness was palpable, a prelude to discovery. I moved slowly, each step a reminder of the fear that had gripped me the previous night. The path was familiar yet strange, each twist and turn a reflection of the journey within. It was then that I discovered it, a small clearing hidden among the trees, a place seemingly untouched by time. The space was serene, a world unto itself. And there, in the center, was an old, weathered cradle, its wood worn and splintered. The sight sent a shiver down my spine, memories crashing over me with an intensity that left me breathless. The cradle was a symbol, a relic of the past that held the key to the present. The voice returned, a gentle murmur carried by the wind, urging me to remember. The words were soft, yet their impact was profound. As I stood there, the pieces of the puzzle began to align. The headaches, the guilt, the secrets I had buried deep, they were all connected to this place, to the choices I had made. The realization was both freeing and binding, a truth that offered both clarity and consequence. In that moment, I realized the darkness I had been fleeing was not an external force, but a part of myself, a shadow I had cast through my own actions. The revelation was stark, a mirror held up to my soul. The relief of understanding was tempered by the weight of the truth, a truth I could no longer ignore. The knowledge was a burden, yet it was also a path to healing. As I left the clearing, the headaches that had plagued me for so long began to dissipate, but the fear remained, a constant reminder of the past I could not alter. The journey had changed me, yet the echoes of what had been lingered. The August night had whispered its secrets, and I was irrevocably changed by what I had learned. The revelations lingered, a testament to the journey I had undertaken, both within and without. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to walk, armed with the truths I had uncovered. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away.
On the outskirts of our quaint little town, there lies a path that everyone refers to as the Forgotten Road. This winding trail seems to be drenched in mystery, capturing the imaginations of the children who live nearby, converting it into a sort of playground for their adventurous spirits. Their laughter can often be heard echoing through the trees as they dare each other to run along the path, but the adults surrounding them are quick to intervene, sharing grim tales and terrifying anecdotes that leave the kids trembling with fear. These stories serve as cautionary tales, each one emphasizing the dangers that lie in discovering what secrets this road holds. As night falls, casting a veil of darkness over the landscape, the moonlight filters through the tall treetops, making the Forgotten Road seem even more peculiar. It takes on an aura of haunting beauty, almost like a ghostly presence that lingers in my mind, whispering to me to delve into its hidden mysteries and learn the forgotten tales that lie within its shadows. The legends that swirl around this road are deeply entrenched in the town's history and have been recounted for generations. In the park, the old-timers often gather on the weathered benches, exchanging quiet conversations. Yet, beneath their lighthearted banter, their words carry a palpable tension, revealing a shared fear and deep respect for the path that cuts through the woods. They recount legends of a young woman who mysteriously vanished while strolling down this very road decades prior. She was known to be a joyful girl who lit up the lives of those around her, often surrounded by friends and family who cherished her bubbly spirit. But one fateful autumn night, under the somber clouds that hung in the sky, she and her friends set off on an adventure to uncover where the path led, only for her to never return home. The townsfolk began to speculate wildly. Some believed she must have lost her way in the dark, while others whispered of darker forces at play, suggesting that something sinister had occurred that ripped her from this world without a trace. From my early childhood, I found myself fascinated by this haunting tale, infused with a passionate desire to peel back the layers and uncover the truth that lay hidden in the shadows of our town. So, on a clear, moonlit night, filled with a sense of purpose, I finally mustered up the courage to take a solitary walk down that enigmatic path. A whirlpool of exhilaration and nervousness swirled within me as I drew in a deep breath, steadying my shaking hands before placing one foot cautiously onto the forgotten road. The air around me buzzed with an odd heaviness, and I could catch a whiff of decay, a faint scent of rotting wood. The trees that lined the path appeared as if they were alive, their branches rustling softly, almost as if they were whispering words of caution, urging me to reconsider, warning me to turn back before it was too late. As I pressed forward, an unsettling sensation washed over me, an instinctive dread that prickled at the nape of my neck, making me hyper-aware of the invisible eyes that seemed to follow my every move. I finally paused, taking a moment to scan my surroundings, and to my horror, I noticed that the trees had grown increasingly dense and foreboding, their heavy boughs throwing eerie shadows that danced ominously in the moonlight. A chill slipped down my spine like a trickle of ice water as I forced myself to keep putting one foot in front of the other, but my heart pounded violently in my chest, beating like a war drum as the stories of the missing girl played on eternal repeat in my mind. The haunting curiosity that had driven me to this moment was now almost completely overwhelmed by fear, as if I were steeped in an unending nightmare from which I could not awaken. Eventually, I broke through the thick underbrush and stepped into a clearing, where a dilapidated house stood in eerie silence, its windows shattered like broken dreams and its walls peeling like old paint, giving it the forlorn appearance of an abandoned memory. As I drew closer, something caught my eye. A small gravestone sat nestled in the ground before the house, etched with the name Emily Hopkins, 1978. A jolt of recognition shot through me. The lost girl was indeed her, the very figure that had haunted the town's stories for so long. I found myself pacing around the grave, my mind swirling with questions about what had happened that day and how she had disappeared without a trace, each thought intertwining with feelings of unease and sorrow. As I focused intently on the gravestone, examining the dust that had settled over it, the atmosphere around me shifted abruptly, turning frigidly cold, sending waves of chills cascading through my body. A foul odor wafted into the air, growing stronger as it seeped from the house nearby, and my imagination began to spiral. I clamped my eyes shut, forcing myself not to succumb to anxious thoughts, and turned to flee the scene, but as I did, a whisper reached my ears. It was like a soft, melodic voice, calling my name, and I felt compelled to stay, almost entranced by its sweetness, a call that was nearly irresistible. Just then, I discerned a hazy figure by the broken window. The silhouette of a girl stood there with a longing expression in her eyes that felt so familiar yet so ethereal. Confusion took hold, merging with fear in a whirlwind of emotions as memories of Emily floated in and out of my consciousness. Had she truly returned, or was it all merely a figment of my imagination? Hesitating, I took a step further, yet each movement felt as if I were wading through thick fog, the ground beneath me shifting to a soft, treacherous surface that seemed to threaten to pull me under, amplifying my panic. Then, just as I was caught in this web of uncertainty, the figure moved slowly out of the crumbling house. She appeared in a flowing white dress that glowed softly, reminiscent of the moon's gentle glow. A longing to approach her and speak swelled within me, but as I stepped closer, her form began to distort, becoming a blur that evaporated into thin air. What replaced her was a haunting, echoing laugh filled with despair and bitterness, shattering the fragile hold I had on my courage. In that instant, I understood. I could not linger here. I had to run away from this place. Suddenly, dizziness crashed over me like a wave, and the world spun chaotically around me. I tried desperately to escape, but my legs felt sluggish, heavy as if they were trapped in cement, incapable of carrying me any further. The whispering came back, louder and filled with anguished cries, almost as if it were the sorrow of Emily echoing through time, expressing pain that resonated with my own, while I felt my awareness fading, swallowed by an all-encompassing darkness. When I finally regained my senses, I found myself back at the crossroads of the town, familiar sights all around me, yet my heart ached with a profound sense of unease. I recalled vividly the figure of that girl, the haunting laughter still reverberating in my mind, and the questions that loomed heavy in my chest. What truly happened to that missing woman? Why did her spirit roam the forgotten road? Had I unwittingly become the next soul destined to fade into the shadows of this town? The town's history felt like a complex riddle, with the end of the forgotten road concealing deeper, uncharted secrets. The apprehension it evoked was not merely a fear of the unknown, but a mirror reflecting the darker aspects of human nature. Our connection to that road resembled a fragile thread, liable to snap at any moment, drawing us further into the abyss. Sitting alone by my window, gazing up at the expanse of stars twinkling in the vast night sky, I gradually came to a chilling realization. Perhaps the true terror of this town wasn't solely rooted in the enigmatic path, but also stemmed from the hidden, dark corners of every individual heart, layers of secrets and fears that we often choose to ignore. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. On a dark and frigid night, I found myself walking toward the edge of a small, unassuming town, where whispers of a remarkable tale about a boy with extraordinary powers were circulating. His name was Liam, a mere 10 years old, yet he bore the weight of fears and sorrows that were far beyond what any child should have to endure. It was said that he had witnessed a horrific event that resulted in the tragic death of his beloved sister. As a journalist, I felt compelled to interview him, hoping to uncover the truth behind this haunting story and perhaps provide him with the solace he desperately needed. Upon entering Liam's home, I was immediately struck by the oppressive atmosphere that enveloped the space. The dim light cast shadows across his small face, which reflected a mixture of innocence and deep despair. He sat curled up in a corner chair, his small hands clasped tightly together, as if he were trying to suppress the overwhelming fear that threatened to consume him. Liam, I began softly, trying to coax him into sharing his story. Can you tell me what happened that night? He looked up at me, tears shimmering in his eyes, and his voice trembled as he replied, I saw him, the hangman. He took a moment to gather himself, inhaling deeply before continuing. He's a terrifying monster, dressed in a long black cloak, with a sinister smile that sends chills down my spine. A cold shiver ran down my back as I listened, and I couldn't help but wonder what this hangman truly was. Liam's voice dropped to a whisper, as if he were recalling a chilling moment from a nightmare. That night, my sister and I were playing in the yard, laughing and having fun. Suddenly, the sky turned dark, and the wind began to howl ominously. Then, I saw him. He was standing under the tree, just watching us. Liam's face paled significantly, a flicker of terror crossing his features as he recalled the memory. I wanted to run, to get away from him, but my body wouldn't move. My sister, she didn't see him. She was laughing, completely unaware of the danger lurking nearby. His voice broke as tears streamed down his cheeks, and I felt my heart ache for this boy who had endured such trauma. What happened next? I pressed on, eager to learn more about the harrowing events that had unfolded. The hangman started walking toward us, his hand reaching out as if he intended to grab my sister. My heart raced, and I shouted for her to run, but she just kept laughing and playing, blissfully unaware. He closed his eyes tightly, as if trying to block out the memory, then he grabbed her and vanished into the darkness, and I was left there, frozen in place. A pang of sorrow struck me, and I asked gently, "Did you try to save her?" I wanted to, but I was powerless to stop it. Liam's voice was heavy with despair. I felt his strength, like invisible ropes binding me down. I could only watch in horror as my sister was taken away from me. My heart shattered into a million pieces in that moment. Liam's story sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the deep fear and trauma that resided within him. His eyes reflected a profound sense of helplessness and despair, as if that horrific scene replayed endlessly in his mind, trapping him in a cycle of anguish. "Are you still afraid of him?" I inquired, hoping to gauge the extent of his fear. "Yes," he nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "He always appears in my dreams, like a ghost haunting me. I don't know why he wants to hurt us, but I know he won't let me go. He's always there, lurking in the shadows." "Have you thought about how to deal with him?" I attempted to guide him toward finding a way to confront his fears. "I don't know. I just want him to leave me alone." Liam's voice was filled with a sense of helplessness. I tried to tell the adults, but they didn't believe me. They said it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but I know he's real. I can feel him. As the interview progressed, Liam's fear became increasingly evident. His hands trembled occasionally, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, clearly battling his inner demons. His story was not just about a monster, it was about a little boy carrying the immense psychological burden of losing a loved one, and the toll it had taken on his young mind. "I hope you can help me." He suddenly looked up at me, his eyes wide and filled with desperation. "I want to get rid of him. I want him to disappear from my life forever." My heart tightened at his plea, realizing that this was more than just an interview. It was a cry for help from a desperate boy who felt trapped in a nightmare. I resolved to do everything within my power to assist him, even though I had no idea how to confront such a supernatural being. "We can figure something out together," I reassured him. "Tell me more about him, anything you can remember." Liam took a deep breath, seemingly organizing his thoughts as he prepared to share more. He began to describe the hangman's appearance and behavior, his voice growing steadier as he spoke. "He always appears at night, like he's emerging from the shadows. His eyes are black, glowing with a malevolent light, and he has a creepy, twisted smile that chills me to the bone. Whenever I see him, I feel an invisible terror enveloping me, like he's got me firmly in his grip." I listened intently, my mind racing with ideas on how to help him. I asked, "Have you tried to let him know you're not afraid of him? Maybe that could weaken him." Liam shook his head, a hint of confusion in his eyes. "I don't know how to do that. He's too powerful. I can't fight back against something like him." I began to think that perhaps we could find a way to confront this monster together. Maybe we needed to discover some inner strength that would help Liam regain his courage and face his fears head-on. "We could try some rituals or look for protective charms," I suggested, hoping to reassure him that there might be a way to combat this darkness. "But I don't know where to start." Liam's voice was laced with uncertainty and doubt. "We can research together, find some books on the supernatural, and see if there's anything that can drive him away," I encouraged, wanting to instill a sense of hope in him. As time passed, Liam seemed to gradually let go of some of his fear, starting to hold onto a glimmer of hope for the future. We researched together, poring over various texts and stories, looking for ways to help him. Every night, his fear still lingered like a shadow, but he began to learn how to face it with newfound courage and determination. However, despite our efforts, the hangman continued to invade his dreams, as if he had never truly left. Liam's condition began to worsen. The nightmares at night left him lethargic and exhausted during the day, making it difficult for him to concentrate or find joy in anything. "I don't know what to do anymore," he said during one of our meetings, despair evident in his eyes. I feel like he's getting closer, like he's always watching me. We can't give up, I said firmly, trying to instill a sense of strength in him. You have power, Liam. As long as you believe in yourself and your strength, you can defeat him. Just as we were trying to find a solution, tragedy struck. One night, Liam's mother came to find me, her expression dazed and worried. Liam is missing. I can't find him anywhere. My heart sank instantly, fear washing over me like a tidal wave. I immediately followed her back to the house, praying it was just a misunderstanding or a simple mistake. However, upon arriving, the home was in disarray, filled with a sense of despair and dread. He mentioned the hangman last, she choked out, her voice trembling. I don't know where he went or what happened. Panic gripped me, and I felt the dark shadow of the hangman looming over the boy's life once again. We started searching the nearby streets, calling out his name, but all we got in response was endless silence, echoing back our desperation. Just when I was about to lose all hope, I received a message on my phone, a blurry photo. In it, Liam stood under a massive dead tree, fear etched on his small face, with that familiar dark figure looming ominously behind him. Come save me, his voice echoed in my mind, sending chills down my spine. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, realizing that time was of the essence. I rushed to the location shown in the photo, silently promising to find him, determined not to let him fall into despair or the clutches of that monster. When I reached the dead tree, the air around me felt heavier, almost suffocating. The shadows of the tree swayed ominously, as if mocking my helplessness and the urgency of the situation. I shouted, Liam, where are you? Please, respond. At that moment, I felt a cold wind rush past me, and a low laugh echoed in my ears, as if the hangman was watching me from behind, relishing my fear. My heart raced, and I turned around, but there was nothing there, just the oppressive darkness surrounding me. Liam! I called out again, my voice tinged with desperation, hoping against hope that he could hear me. Suddenly, I heard a faint response, seemingly coming from the other side of the tree. I hurried toward the sound, filled with a mix of hope and fear. Finally, I spotted Liam, curled up under the tree, pale and terrified, his small frame trembling. You came, he whispered, his voice barely audible, filled with relief and fear. I rushed to his side, gripping his hand tightly in mine. I'm here, let's get out of here. We can't stay any longer. But just as we were about to leave, the hangman's figure suddenly materialized in front of us, blocking our path. His smile was sinister and cunning, as if he reveled in our plight and despair. Did you really think you could escape me? His voice was like a cold blade, piercing my heart and filling me with dread. Fear washed over me, and I felt utterly hopeless, but I knew I couldn't give up. I turned to Liam and said, trust me, follow me. We can make it out of here together. We began to run in the opposite direction, our hearts filled with fear and despair, the darkness closing in around us. The hangman's laughter echoed in our ears, mocking our helplessness and desperation. Just when we were close to losing all hope, I suddenly remembered the research we had done earlier, and a light bulb went off in my head. Liam, imagine your greatest power. Picture it in your mind. He flinched slightly, as if understanding my meaning, closed his eyes tightly, and concentrated hard. I could feel his inner courage slowly rising, as if an invisible force was pushing away the fear that had gripped him for so long. You can do it! I shouted, my voice filled with encouragement and determination. In that moment, the hangman's figure began to blur, seemingly suppressed by some unseen force. His laughter gradually faded, replaced by a calm silence that enveloped us. Liam opened his eyes, a look of determination and strength on his face. I'm not afraid of you anymore. You can't control me. As he spoke those powerful words, the hangman's figure completely vanished from the air, dissipating like mist in the morning sun. We finally broke free from his grasp, feeling a wave of relief wash over us. "We did it!" I exclaimed, gripping Liam's hand tightly, joy and relief flooding through me. However, even though we escaped the hangman's shadow, a hint of sadness lingered in Liam's eyes. "I'll never forget my sister." His voice was low and sorrowful, filled with an ache that I could not ignore. My heart ached for him, realizing that his inner scars had not disappeared, and the pain of loss still weighed heavily on his young soul. While we had defeated that terrifying monster, the emotional toll of losing his sister remained deeply etched in his heart. "We'll face the future together," I reassured him, my voice steady and comforting. "You're not alone in this. I'll be here for you every step of the way." In that moment, I realized that while fear and pain may never fully disappear, we could confront life's challenges with courage and unity. Liam's story taught me that when facing our inner demons, only bravery and perseverance can lead us to a brighter tomorrow, filled with hope and healing. Together, we would navigate the darkness and strive toward the light, hand in hand. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. As the chill of autumn settled in, the air thickened with the scent of decaying leaves and the distant echoes of laughter and screams. Halloween was upon us, a time when the veil between the living and the dead thinned, allowing the restless spirits to roam freely among the unsuspecting mortals. I am one of those spirits, an ancient demon who has wandered the earth for centuries, feeding on the fear of the living. Yet, this year felt different, as if the very fabric of the night was woven with a sense of change that stirred something deep within me. I floated through the shadows of the night, my form shifting and flickering like the dying flames of a candle, casting eerie shapes against the walls of the buildings that lined the streets. The streets were alive with children clad in costumes, their faces painted with glee and mischief, embodying the spirit of the night. I watched them with a mix of fascination and longing. My heart, a heart long hardened by centuries of darkness, began to stir with an unfamiliar sensation. It was not hunger, but something akin to nostalgia, a bittersweet reminder of the joy I had once known. I remembered my own youth, the thrill of the hunt, the intoxicating rush of terror as I descended upon my unsuspecting prey, relishing their screams and despair. But as I observed the children, my attention was drawn to a group of older teens lurking nearby, their laughter echoing like a sinister melody. Yet, their laughter was laced with malice, a sharp contrast to the innocent joy of the younger ones. I watched as they cornered a smaller child dressed as a ghost, their taunts echoing in the night like a dark chant. The child's eyes widened with fear, a reflection of pure innocence caught in a web of cruelty, and for a moment, I felt a pang of something I hadn't felt in ages, compassion. It was a feeling so foreign to me that it startled me, shaking the very foundation of my existence. In that moment, I realized that my existence had become a twisted reflection of the very thing I despised. I had once reveled in the fear of others, finding delight in the chaos I could create. But now I was confronted with the raw cruelty of those who took pleasure in tormenting the innocent, and it stirred a deep anger within me. My anger surged, but it was not directed at the child. Instead, it was aimed at the tormentors, those who wielded their power to instill fear in the hearts of the weak. With a flick of my wrist, I summoned the shadows around me, weaving them into a tapestry of terror that enveloped the area. The air grew heavy, thick with a palpable sense of dread, and the laughter of the teens turned to uneasy chuckles. They looked around, their bravado faltering as they felt an unseen presence looming over them, an ancient force they could not comprehend. I could sense their fear, and it filled me with a dark delight, a feeling I had long associated with my true nature. But as I prepared to unleash my wrath upon them, I hesitated, caught in a moment of introspection. I could feel the child's fear, a pure and innocent terror that resonated deep within me, echoing in the darkest corners of my soul. I had fed on fear for so long, but this was different. This was not the fear of a predator's meal, it was the fear of a child, untainted and vulnerable. I didn't want to add to it. I wanted to protect it. I drew closer to the child, my form shifting to become less menacing, more comforting, as I wrapped my essence around them like a cloak of warmth and safety. I whispered words of encouragement, soft and soothing, and the child looked up, eyes wide with wonder, and for the first time in centuries, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. The shadows I had summoned turned against the tormentors, swirling around them like a tempest, a dark storm of their own making. Their laughter ceased, replaced by cries of panic as they stumbled back, their bravado shattered in an instant. I reveled in their fear, but I knew it was not enough. I wanted to do more than scare them. I wanted to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I wanted them to understand the pain they inflicted upon others, to feel the weight of their actions pressing down upon them. With a wave of my hand, I conjured visions of their own childhood fears, the monsters that had lurked in their closets and under their beds, waiting to pounce at the slightest sound. They were forced to confront their own vulnerabilities, their own darkness, and I watched as they trembled, their faces pale with terror. But as I observed them, I realized that my anger was misplaced. They were products of a world that had taught them to be cruel, just as I had been taught to be a predator, a creature of the night. In that moment of clarity, I made a choice. I would not allow my existence to be defined by violence and vengeance. I would become a guardian of the innocent, a protector of those who could not defend themselves. I released the shadows that had ensnared the tormentors, allowing them to flee into the night, their laughter replaced by whimpers of fear and confusion. I wanted them to remember this night, to carry the weight of their actions with them, to think twice before they sought to harm another. Turning my attention back to the child, I knelt beside them, my form shimmering with a gentle light that contrasted sharply with the darkness that surrounded us. "You are safe now," I assured them, my voice soft and soothing, a balm to their frayed nerves. "No one will hurt you tonight." The child's eyes sparkled with gratitude, and I felt a warmth spread through me, a feeling I had long thought lost to the ages. It was a connection, a bond forged in the crucible of fear and compassion. As the night wore on, I continued to watch over the children, intervening whenever I sensed danger lurking in the shadows. I became a silent guardian, my presence felt but never seen, a whisper of reassurance in the dark. I healed the bruises of those who had been hurt, instilling courage in the hearts of the timid, urging them to stand tall against the tide of cruelty. I became their shadow, a protector lurking just beyond the light, ensuring that the spirit of Halloween remained a time of joy rather than fear and despair. But as I embraced this new role, I felt the remnants of my old self clawing at the edges of my consciousness, a constant reminder of the darkness that still resided within me. The hunger for chaos and terror still lingered, a dark whisper in the back of my mind, tempting me to return to my old ways. I struggled to reconcile the demon I had been with the protector I was becoming, a battle of wills that raged within my very essence. In the days that followed, I wandered through the world of the living, observing humanity with fresh eyes, taking in the beauty and the horror that coexisted in this realm. I saw the pain and suffering that often went unnoticed, the bullying and cruelty that permeated the lives of the innocent, like a dark cloud that threatened to suffocate their joy. I became determined to intervene, to be a force of balance in a world that often tilted toward darkness, to stand as a beacon of hope amidst despair. But with each act of kindness, I felt the pull of my old nature grow stronger, a siren's call to return to the shadows. I was torn between two worlds, the darkness that had defined me for so long and the light I was beginning to embrace, each side vying for dominance over my soul. The struggle within me intensified, and I knew that I had to make a choice that would define my existence moving forward. One fateful night, I found myself standing at the edge of a schoolyard, watching as a group of children played, their laughter echoing in the air like a sweet melody that warmed my heart. But lurking in the shadows were the tormentors, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, their eyes glinting with malice. I felt the anger rise within me, the familiar thirst for vengeance bubbling to the surface, urging me to act. I could unleash my power, instill fear in those who sought to harm the innocent, to become the monster they feared, a dark force of retribution. But as I stood there, I remembered the child whose fear I had alleviated, the warmth of their gratitude still fresh in my mind, a reminder of the path I had chosen. In that moment, I made my choice. I would not succumb to the darkness that beckoned me. I would stand as a protector, not a predator. I focused my energy, summoning a barrier of light around the children, shielding them from harm, a radiant shield against the encroaching darkness. The tormentors approached, their laughter echoing with malice, but as they crossed the threshold of my barrier, they were met with an overwhelming sense of dread, a fear so profound it rooted them to the spot. They faltered, their confidence wavering as they felt the weight of their own fears pressing down upon them, a reflection of the terror they had inflicted upon others. I whispered words of strength to the children, urging them to stand tall and united, to face their tormentors with courage and resolve. Together, they faced their tormentors, emboldened by the light I had woven around them, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they were not alone. The bullies, confronted by the very fear they had inflicted upon others, turned and fled, their laughter replaced by cries of panic as they stumbled into the darkness, leaving the children victorious. I felt a surge of pride as I watched them embrace, their joy radiating like a beacon in the night, a testament to the strength of unity in the face of adversity. In that moment, I knew I had found my purpose, a calling that transcended my past. I would no longer be a creature of darkness, but a guardian of the light, a sentinel watching over the innocent. I would walk among the living, not as a predator, but as a protector, ensuring that the innocent could play and laugh without fear, that their joy would not be tainted by the cruelty of others. As the years passed, I continued to roam the world, a silent guardian watching over those who needed it most, a whisper of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness. I became a legend whispered among children, a figure who appeared in times of need, a protector who emerged from the shadows to stand against the tide of cruelty. And though the darkness still lingered within me, I had learned to embrace the light, to harness it as a force for good. I had found a new way to exist in a world that often felt overwhelming, a way to channel my power into something greater than myself, a purpose that transcended my past. As Halloween approached each year, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would don my guise once more, not as a harbinger of fear, but as a guardian of joy, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a flicker of light waiting to be found. I would remind the world that hope endures, that kindness can flourish even amidst despair. And so, I continued my journey, a haunting reflection of the past, transformed into a beacon of hope for the future, a testament to the power of choice and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. It was an unbearably sweltering summer day when my family and I made the decision to visit my Uncle Harold, who was affectionately known as Crazy Harold by everyone in the family. He lived on a sprawling, rustic farm nestled deep in the heart of West Virginia, surrounded by thick, dense woods and fields that stretched endlessly as far as the eye could see. The air was heavy with humidity, thick enough to feel like a blanket draped over us, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting long, sinister shadows that danced ominously across the landscape, creating an unsettling atmosphere that I could feel in my bones. As we arrived at the farm, I was struck by the eerie stillness that enveloped the entire property. The only sounds that broke the silence were the distant chirping of cicadas and the gentle rustling of leaves in the warm breeze. My younger siblings, Emma and Jake, were bursting with energy, eagerly bounding out of the car, their excitement palpable as they rushed to explore the vast expanse of land that lay before us. I, however, felt an unsettling sense of dread wash over me as my eyes caught sight of the scarecrow standing guard in the nearest field, its presence looming ominously in the background. It was an odd-looking figure, constructed from tattered clothes that had been stuffed with straw, giving it a disheveled appearance. Its face was a burlap sack, crudely stitched with two button eyes that seemed to follow me wherever I went, regardless of where I stood. I shivered involuntarily, feeling as if it were alive, watching me with a sinister intent hidden beneath its stitched features. "It's just a scarecrow," I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my stomach. But deep down, I knew that something was off about it, something that made my skin crawl and my heart race. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the shadows grew longer, and the airs turned cooler, creating an atmosphere of foreboding that hung over the farm like a thick fog. Uncle Harold welcomed us with his usual boisterous laughter, a sound that had always filled me with warmth, but this time there was a strange glint in his eyes that made me uneasy. He regaled us with stories of the farm, tales of his adventures and misadventures, but I couldn't shake my fixation on the scarecrow. I found myself glancing out the window repeatedly, watching as the last rays of sunlight illuminated its grotesque form, casting an even darker shadow across the ground. That night, after a hearty dinner filled with laughter and stories, we gathered around the fire pit outside. The flames crackled and popped, casting flickering shadows that danced across our faces, creating an almost surreal ambience. Uncle Harold told us ghost stories, his voice low and conspiratorial, weaving tales that sent shivers down our spines. But my mind kept drifting back to the scarecrow, the image of its lifeless face haunting me. I felt a chill run down my spine as I imagined it coming to life, its straw limbs reaching out for me in the darkness. As darkness enveloped the farm, I suggested we head inside, my voice tinged with urgency. Emma and Jake protested, wanting to stay up longer to enjoy the warmth of the fire, but I was insistent. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the fields, lurking just out of sight. Reluctantly, they followed me into the house, their faces still lit with the excitement of the evening. We settled into our rooms, but sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the night, every creak of the house amplifying my growing anxiety. Hours later, I was jolted awake by a loud thud outside that shattered the stillness of the night. My heart raced as I sat up, straining to hear. It came again, a heavy sound, followed by a rustling noise that sent a jolt of fear through me. I glanced at the window, and my blood ran cold. The scarecrow was gone. Panic surged through me, and I shook Emma awake, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you hear that?" I asked urgently. She groaned and rolled over, clearly still lost in sleep, but Jake was already sitting up, wide-eyed and terrified. "Where's the scarecrow?" he asked, his voice trembling with fear. I didn't have an answer, but the fear in my gut told me we needed to find it, to understand what was happening. We crept out of our room, the wooden floorboards creaking ominously beneath our feet as we moved cautiously. The house was dark, save for the faint glow of the moon filtering through the windows, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I led the way, my heart pounding in my chest as we stepped outside into the cool night air, which sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in around us, thickening the air and heightening my senses. As we ventured into the yard, the thudding noise grew louder, echoing in the stillness of the night. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to retreat to the safety of the house, but curiosity propelled us forward, urging us to uncover the source of the sound. We approached the field, and the sight that met us sent a jolt of terror through my veins, freezing me in place. The scarecrow stood at the edge of the field, but it was different. The straw was scattered around its feet, and its head had turned, facing us directly with an unsettling intensity. The button eyes glinted in the moonlight, and I could have sworn it was smiling, a wicked grin that sent chills down my spine. "It's just the wind," I whispered, trying to convince myself that there was a rational explanation for what we were witnessing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the field, sending a chill down my spine that felt like icy fingers brushing against my skin. The scarecrow swayed unnaturally in the wind, and I felt an overwhelming urge to run, to escape the malevolent presence that seemed to radiate from it. "We need to go back," I hissed, grabbing Emma's hand tightly. But before we could turn, the scarecrow lurched forward, its straw arms outstretched as if reaching for us, beckoning us closer. I screamed, a sound of pure terror escaping my lips, and we bolted back toward the house, our hearts racing. The thudding sound followed us, growing louder with every frantic step we took. I could hear the rustling of straw behind us, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night, and the air felt thick with dread, pressing down on us like a heavy weight. We burst through the door, slamming it shut behind us, our breaths coming in frantic gasps as we leaned against the door, trying to catch our breath. "What was that?" Emma cried, her eyes wide with fear, glistening in the dim light of the living room. "It's just a scarecrow," I insisted, though I could feel the tremor in my voice betraying my own fear. "It can't hurt us." But deep down, I knew I was lying to both her and myself. The fear that had gripped me earlier had morphed into a primal instinct to survive, to protect my siblings from whatever malevolent force lurked outside. We huddled together in the living room, listening intently for any signs of the scarecrow's approach, the night feeling endless and oppressive. Each creak of the house amplified our terror, echoing in the silence like a haunting reminder of our vulnerability. As the hours dragged on, we finally dared to peek outside, our hearts pounding in our chests. The field lay still under the moonlight, the scarecrow now just a shadowy figure in the distance, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting for us, biding its time, ready to strike when we least expected it. Morning light eventually broke, casting a warm glow over the farm and dispelling the darkness that had haunted us through the night. The world felt different in the daylight, vibrant and alive, yet the memory of the previous night lingered like a dark cloud hanging over us. Uncle Harold found us huddled together in the living room, our faces pale and drawn, the remnants of fear etched into our features. "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face, his brow furrowing as he took in our frightened expressions. I recounted our harrowing night, detailing every chilling moment, but he merely chuckled, shaking his head dismissively. "You kids and your imaginations. It's just a scarecrow." But I could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Was it fear? Or perhaps something darker that he was unwilling to admit? I couldn't tell, but the unease lingered, a shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. We spent the day trying to shake off the events of the night, engaging in playful activities and enjoying the sunshine, but I couldn't help but feel a lingering dread gnawing at my insides. As the sun dipped below the horizon once more, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, I found myself drawn to the window again. The scarecrow stood in the field, its presence looming over us like a dark omen, a reminder of the terror that had gripped us just hours before. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The fear had returned, gnawing at my insides like a relentless predator. I lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the night, but this time, I was prepared. I had a plan. I would face the scarecrow, confront the fears that had haunted me for so long. As the clock struck midnight, I quietly slipped out of bed, determined to confront my fear head-on. I crept through the house, careful not to wake my siblings or Uncle Harold, my heart pounding in my chest as I moved. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, and I shivered, but I pressed on, driven by a mix of fear and determination. I approached the field, the moonlight illuminating the scarecrow in all its grotesque glory, its form casting an elongated shadow across the ground. It stood there, motionless, but I could feel its eyes on me, watching, waiting. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "You're just a pile of straw," I whispered, trying to summon the courage I desperately needed. But as I stepped closer, the scarecrow seemed to shift, its form becoming more defined in the moonlight, almost as if it were alive. It was no longer just a figure, it felt as if it were breathing, waiting for me to make a move. I felt a surge of panic, but I couldn't turn back now, I had come too far. "Leave us alone," I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness of the night, breaking the silence that enveloped the farm. The scarecrow didn't respond, but I could feel the air grow heavy with tension, thickening around me like a shroud. Suddenly, it lunged forward, moving with an unnatural speed that sent my heart racing. I stumbled back, fear coursing through my veins as I turned to run. I dashed toward the house, the sound of rustling straw behind me growing louder, echoing in my ears like a death knell. I could feel its presence closing in, the thudding noise reverberating through the air as I reached the door. I flung it open, slamming it shut just in time to block whatever horror was chasing me. Breathless and trembling, I leaned against the door, trying to calm my racing heart, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But the fear had taken root deep within me, and I knew I couldn't stay at the farm any longer. I had to get away from the scarecrow, from whatever dark force it represented, whatever malevolent spirit had taken hold of my imagination. The next morning, I gathered my siblings and told them we were leaving, my voice firm and resolute. Uncle Harold tried to convince us to stay, offering more stories and adventures, but I was adamant, my resolve unshakable. We packed our bags, each item feeling heavier than the last, and left the farm behind, the scarecrow's figure fading into the distance as we drove away. As we drove away, I glanced back at the fields, the sun shining brightly, illuminating the world in a golden hue. But even in the daylight, I could feel the weight of the scarecrow's gaze upon me, a haunting reminder of the terror that lurked just beyond the safety of our home. It haunted my thoughts, a specter of fear that lingered in the corners of my mind, refusing to let go. Years later, I would often think back to that summer, to the scarecrow that had haunted my childhood and left an indelible mark on my psyche. It became a symbol of my fears, a reminder of the darkness that lurks in the corners of our minds, waiting to pounce when we least expect it. I learned that fear can take many forms, and sometimes, it's not the monsters we see that are the most terrifying, but the ones that linger in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And even now, as an adult, I find myself glancing at fields with scarecrows, a chill creeping down my spine at the sight of those inanimate figures. I can't help but wonder if they're truly just piles of straw or if they hold a darker secret, a connection to the fears that shaped my childhood and continue to echo in my mind. The memory of that summer lingers, a haunting reminder of the scarecrow's shadow that will forever remain etched in my soul, a chilling testament to the power of fear and the darkness that can reside in even the most innocent of forms. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. It was an unbearably sweltering summer day when my family and I made the decision to visit my Uncle Harold, who was affectionately known as Crazy Harold by everyone in the family. He lived on a sprawling, rustic farm nestled deep in the heart of West Virginia, surrounded by thick, dense woods and fields that stretched endlessly as far as the eye could see. The air was heavy with humidity, thick enough to feel like a blanket draped over us, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting long, sinister shadows that danced ominously across the landscape, creating an unsettling atmosphere that I could feel in my bones. As we arrived at the farm, I was struck by the eerie stillness that enveloped the entire property. The only sounds that broke the silence were the distant chirping of cicadas and the gentle rustling of leaves in the warm breeze. My younger siblings, Emma and Jake, were bursting with energy, eagerly bounding out of the car, their excitement palpable as they rushed to explore the vast expanse of land that lay before us. I, however, felt an unsettling sense of dread wash over me as my eyes caught sight of the scarecrow standing guard in the nearest field, its presence looming ominously in the background. It was an odd-looking figure, constructed from tattered clothes that had been stuffed with straw, giving it a disheveled appearance. Its face was a burlap sack, crudely stitched with two button eyes that seemed to follow me wherever I went, regardless of where I stood. I shivered involuntarily, feeling as if it were alive, watching me with a sinister intent hidden beneath its stitched features. "It's just a scarecrow," I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my stomach. But deep down, I knew that something was off about it, something that made my skin crawl and my heart race. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the shadows grew longer, and the airs turned cooler, creating an atmosphere of foreboding that hung over the farm like a thick fog. Uncle Harold welcomed us with his usual boisterous laughter, a sound that had always filled me with warmth, but this time there was a strange glint in his eye that made me uneasy. He regaled us with stories of the farm, tales of his adventures and misadventures, but I couldn't shake my fixation on the scarecrow. I found myself glancing out the window repeatedly, watching as the last rays of sunlight illuminated its grotesque form, casting an even darker shadow across the ground. That night, after a hearty dinner filled with laughter and stories, we gathered around the fire pit outside. The flames crackled and popped, casting flickering shadows that danced across our faces, creating an almost surreal ambience. Uncle Harold told us ghost stories, his voice low and conspiratorial, weaving tales that sent shivers down our spines. But my mind kept drifting back to the scarecrow, the image of its lifeless face haunting me. I felt a chill run down my spine as I imagined it coming to life, its straw limbs reaching out for me in the darkness. As darkness enveloped the farm, I suggested we head inside, my voice tinged with urgency. Emma and Jake protested, wanting to stay up longer to enjoy the warmth of the fire, but I was insistent. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the fields, lurking just out of sight. Reluctantly, they followed me into the house, their faces still lit with the excitement of the evening. We settled into our rooms, but sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the night, every creak of the house amplifying my growing anxiety. Hours later, I was jolted awake by a loud thud outside that shattered the stillness of the night. My heart raced as I sat up, straining to hear. It came again, a heavy sound, followed by a rustling noise that sent a jolt of fear through me. I glanced at the window, and my blood ran cold. The scarecrow was gone. Panic surged through me, and I shook Emma awake, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you hear that?" I asked urgently. She groaned and rolled over, clearly still lost in sleep, but Jake was already sitting up, wide-eyed and terrified. "Where's the scarecrow?" he asked, his voice trembling with fear. I didn't have an answer, but the fear in my gut told me we needed to find it, to understand what was happening. We crept out of our room, the wooden floorboards creaking ominously beneath our feet as we moved cautiously. The house was dark, save for the faint glow of the moon filtering through the windows, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I led the way, my heart pounding in my chest as we stepped outside into the cool night air, which sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in around us, thickening the air and heightening my senses. As we ventured into the yard, the thudding noise grew louder, echoing in the stillness of the night. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to retreat to the safety of the house, but curiosity propelled us forward, urging us to uncover the source of the sound. We approached the field, and the sight that met us sent a jolt of terror through my veins, freezing me in place. The scarecrow stood at the edge of the field, but it was different. The straw was scattered around its feet, and its head had turned, facing us directly with an unsettling intensity. The button eyes glinted in the moonlight, and I could have sworn it was smiling, a wicked grin that sent chills down my spine. "It's just the wind," I whispered, trying to convince myself that there was a rational explanation for what we were witnessing. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the field, sending a chill down my spine that felt like icy fingers brushing against my skin. The scarecrow swayed unnaturally in the wind, and I felt an overwhelming urge to run, to escape the malevolent presence that seemed to radiate from it. "We need to go back," I hissed, grabbing Emma's hand tightly. But before we could turn, the scarecrow lurched forward, its straw arms outstretched as if reaching for us, beckoning us closer. I screamed, a sound of pure terror escaping my lips, and we bolted back toward the house, our hearts racing. The thudding sound followed us, growing louder with every frantic step we took. I could hear the rustling of straw behind us, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night, and the air felt thick with dread, pressing down on us like a heavy weight. We burst through the door, slamming it shut behind us, our breaths coming in frantic gasps as we leaned against the door, trying to catch our breath. What was that? Emma cried, her eyes wide with fear, glistening in the dim light of the living room. It's just a scarecrow, I insisted, though I could feel the tremor in my voice betraying my own fear. It can't hurt us. But deep down, I knew I was lying to both her and myself. The fear that had gripped me earlier had morphed into a primal instinct to survive, to protect my siblings from whatever malevolent force lurked outside. We huddled together in the living room, listening intently for any signs of the scarecrow's approach, the night feeling endless and oppressive. Each creak of the house amplified our terror, echoing in the silence like a haunting reminder of our vulnerability. As the hours dragged on, we finally dared to peek outside, our hearts pounding in our chests. The field lay still under the moonlight, the scarecrow now just a shadowy figure in the distance, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting for us, biding its time, ready to strike when we least expected it. Morning light eventually broke, casting a warm glow over the farm and dispelling the darkness that had haunted us through the night. The world felt different in the daylight, vibrant and alive, yet the memory of the previous night lingered like a dark cloud hanging over us. Uncle Harold found us huddled together in the living room, our faces pale and drawn, the remnants of fear etched into our features. "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face, his brow furrowing as he took in our frightened expressions. I recounted our harrowing night, detailing every chilling moment, but he merely chuckled, shaking his head dismissively. "You kids and your imaginations. It's just a scarecrow." But I could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Was it fear? Or perhaps something darker that he was unwilling to admit? I couldn't tell, but the unease lingered, a shadow lurking in the corners of my mind. We spent the day trying to shake off the events of the night, engaging in playful activities and enjoying the sunshine, but I couldn't help but feel a lingering dread gnawing at my insides. As the sun dipped below the horizon once more, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, I found myself drawn to the window again. The scarecrow stood in the field, its presence looming over us like a dark omen, a reminder of the terror that had gripped us just hours before. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The fear had returned, gnawing at my insides like a relentless predator. I lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the night, but this time, I was prepared. I had a plan. I would face the scarecrow, confront the fears that had haunted me for so long. As the clock struck midnight, I quietly slipped out of bed, determined to confront my fear head-on. I crept through the house, careful not to wake my siblings or Uncle Harold, my heart pounding in my chest as I moved. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, and I shivered, but I pressed on, driven by a mix of fear and determination. I approached the field, the moonlight illuminating the scarecrow in all its grotesque glory, its form casting an elongated shadow across the ground. It stood there, motionless, but I could feel its eyes on me, watching, waiting. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "You're just a pile of straw," I whispered, trying to summon the courage I desperately needed. But as I stepped closer, the scarecrow seemed to shift, its form becoming more defined in the moonlight, almost as if it were alive. It was no longer just a figure, it felt as if it were breathing, waiting for me to make a move. I felt a surge of panic, but I couldn't turn back now, I had come too far. "Leave us alone!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness of the night, breaking the silence that enveloped the farm. The scarecrow didn't respond, but I could feel the air grow heavy with tension, thickening around me like a shroud. Suddenly, it lunged forward, moving with an unnatural speed that sent my heart racing. I stumbled back, fear coursing through my veins as I turned to run, I dashed toward the house, the sound of rustling straw behind me growing louder, echoing in my ears like a death knell. I could feel its presence closing in, the thudding noise reverberating through the air as I reached the door. I flung it open, slamming it shut just in time to block whatever horror was chasing me. Breathless and trembling, I leaned against the door, trying to calm my racing heart, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But the fear had taken root deep within me, and I knew I couldn't stay at the farm any longer. I had to get away from the scarecrow, from whatever dark force it represented, whatever malevolent spirit had taken hold of my imagination. The next morning, I gathered my siblings and told them we were leaving, my voice firm and resolute. Uncle Harold tried to convince us to stay, offering more stories and adventures, but I was adamant, my resolve unshakable. We packed our bags, each item feeling heavier than the last, and left the farm behind, the scarecrow's figure fading into the distance as we drove away. As we drove away, I glanced back at the fields, the sun shining brightly, illuminating the world in a golden hue. But even in the daylight, I could feel the weight of the scarecrow's gaze upon me, a haunting reminder of the terror that lurked just beyond the safety of our home. It haunted my thoughts, a specter of fear that lingered in the corners of my mind, refusing to let go. Years later, I would often think back to that summer, to the scarecrow that had haunted my childhood and left an indelible mark on my psyche. It became a symbol of my fears, a reminder of the darkness that lurks in the corners of our minds, waiting to pounce when we least expect it. I learned that fear can take many forms, and sometimes, it's not the monsters we see that are the most terrifying, but the ones that linger in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And even now, as an adult, I find myself glancing at fields with scarecrows, a chill creeping down my spine at the sight of those inanimate figures. I can't help but wonder if they're truly just piles of straw or if they hold a darker secret, a connection to the fears that shaped my childhood and continue to echo in my mind. The memory of that summer lingers, a haunting reminder of the scarecrow's shadow that will forever remain etched in my soul, a chilling testament to the power of fear and the darkness that can reside in even the most innocent of forms. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. It was a night like any other, yet the air was thick with an unsettling chill that sent shivers down my spine. I stood at the edge of the old, overgrown path that led to our childhood home, a place that had long since crumbled into memory and faded from the world. It had been 50 long years since I lost my brother, Adam, and 50 years of guilt had twisted my heart into a knot that I could never untie, a burden that felt heavier with each passing day. I remember that fateful day vividly, as if it were etched into the very fabric of my mind. We were just two boys, hungry for adventure and far too curious for our own good. One rainy afternoon, we had stumbled upon an ancient book in the attic, its pages yellowed and brittle with age, filled with strange symbols and arcane writings. The words seemed to dance before our eyes, whispering promises of power, knowledge, and the thrill of the unknown. In our youthful arrogance, we decided to try a spell, a simple incantation that we thought would bring us closer together, strengthen our bond as brothers. Instead, it tore us apart in a way I could never have imagined. Adam had always been the braver one, the one who took risks without a second thought, while I often hesitated, weighed down by doubt. I watched in horror as he recited the words, his voice trembling but filled with determination. The air around us crackled with energy, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a surge of hope and excitement. But then, everything changed in an instant. A dark shadow enveloped him, swallowing him whole, and within a heartbeat, he was gone. I was left alone, standing in the oppressive silence of the attic, the echoes of his laughter fading into oblivion, replaced by a haunting stillness that filled the void he left behind. For years, I tried to move on, burying the memory of that day deep within me, hoping to forget the pain that gnawed at my soul. I excelled in my career, built a life that looked perfect from the outside, but inside, I was a hollow shell, a mere shadow of the person I once was. Adam's absence haunted me, a ghost that lingered at the edges of my consciousness, whispering reminders of my failure. I thought about him every day, wondering if he was trapped somewhere, if I had somehow condemned him to a fate worse than death, a fate that I could have prevented. As the years passed, I sought solace in various forms, therapy, meditation, even the occasional seance, but nothing could bring me peace. I became consumed by the idea that I needed to confront my past, to face the consequences of my actions, to seek redemption for the terrible mistake I had made. And so, after half a century, I found myself standing at the threshold of our old home, the place where it all began, a sight of both joy and unimaginable sorrow. The house loomed before me, a decaying relic of happier times, its once vibrant colors faded to dull shades of gray. Vines crawled up its walls, and the windows were shattered, like the fragments of my memories scattered across time. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. I had come to free Adam's spirit, to release him from the chains of our shared past that had bound him for so long. I believed that if I could confront him, if I could face the darkness that had taken him, I could finally let go of the guilt that had consumed me for so long, a burden I had carried alone. As I stepped inside, the air grew heavy with dust and despair, each breath filled with the weight of memories long forgotten. Shadows danced in the corners, and the floorboards creaked beneath my weight, as if the house itself was alive, warning me to turn back. I felt a chill run down my spine, an instinctual fear that urged me to flee. But I pressed on, drawn by an invisible force that urged me deeper into the darkness, into the heart of my past. I found myself in the attic, the very place where our lives had changed forever, where innocence had been lost. The air was thick with memories, and I could almost hear Adam's voice calling out to me, a sweet echo of the boy I once knew. I closed my eyes, allowing the memories to wash over me, the laughter, the games, the bond we had shared. But beneath it all lay the weight of our final moments, the spell that had torn us apart, leaving me with a wound that had never healed. I took the old book from the dusty shelf, its pages still intact despite the years that had passed. The words seemed to glow with a sinister light, beckoning me to read them once more, to unlock the secrets that lay within. I hesitated, the fear of what I might unleash flooding my mind, a sense of dread creeping in. But I had come too far to turn back now. I needed to know if there was a way to bring Adam back, to free him from whatever darkness had claimed him, to atone for my sins. As I recited the incantation, the room around me began to tremble, the very foundation shaking under the weight of my words. The air crackled with energy, and I felt a presence materialize beside me, a force that sent my heart racing. I turned to face the figure emerging from the shadows, and there he was, Adam, just as I remembered him, yet somehow different. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and his smile held a hint of something darker, something that sent a jolt of fear through my veins. "Rick," he said, his voice echoing in the silence, a sound both familiar and foreign. "You've finally come for me." I felt a rush of emotions, relief, fear, longing, and an overwhelming sense of dread. "I've come to set you free," I replied, my voice trembling as I fought to keep my composure. "I'm so sorry for what happened. I never meant for any of this." Adam's expression shifted, a flicker of anger crossing his face, twisting his features into something unrecognizable. "You think you can just undo it? You think you can erase the past?" His voice grew louder, echoing off the walls, reverberating in my chest, and I took a step back, fear gripping my heart like a vice. "I want to help you," I pleaded, desperation creeping into my tone. "I want to make things right, to fix what we broke." He laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down my spine, filling the room with a sense of impending doom. "You can't help me, Rick. I'm beyond help. You should have known better than to play with forces you don't understand, forces that can consume you whole. In that moment, I realized the truth. Adam was not the boy I had lost. He was something else, something twisted by the darkness that had taken hold of him, a reflection of my own guilt and fear. I felt a surge of panic as I understood the consequences of our actions, the gravity of what we had unleashed. The spell had not just taken him, it had transformed him into a creature of the shadows, a manifestation of my deepest regrets. "Leave this place," he hissed, his voice low and menacing, dripping with malice. "You don't belong here anymore. You never did." But I couldn't leave. I had come too far, and I needed to confront the darkness that had claimed my brother, to face the monster that had emerged from our shared past. "I won't abandon you, Adam," I said, my voice steady despite the fears that threatened to overwhelm me, a flicker of hope igniting within me. "I will find a way to save you, to bring you back to the light." He stepped closer, and I could feel the coldness radiating from him, a palpable chill that seeped into my bones. "You don't understand, do you? There is no saving me. You are the one who needs to be saved from the darkness that has taken root in your heart." With that, the room erupted into chaos. Shadows swirled around us, a tempest of darkness that clawed at my sanity, and I felt the pull of the abyss trying to drag me under, to consume me whole. I fought against it, my heart racing as I struggled to maintain my grip on reality. I couldn't let go, not now, not after all these years of searching for answers. In a moment of desperation, I reached for the gun I had brought with me, a last resort in case things went horribly wrong. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but as I looked into Adam's eyes, I saw the truth. The boy I had loved was gone, replaced by something malevolent and unforgiving, a being that thrived on despair. "I'm sorry, Adam," I whispered, tears streaming down my face, blurring my vision. "I have to do this for both of us." As I raised the gun, time seemed to slow, each heartbeat echoing in my ears. I could see the flicker of pain in his eyes, a fleeting glimpse of the brother I once knew, the boy who had shared my dreams and fears. But it was quickly replaced by rage, a primal scream that echoed through the shadows, and I knew I had to act before it was too late. I pulled the trigger, the sound echoing in the silence of the attic, a final note in our tragic symphony. The darkness erupted around us, and I felt a rush of energy as the shadows recoiled from the blast, a momentary victory. Adam let out a scream that pierced through the chaos, a sound filled with anguish and fury, and for a brief moment, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, as if I had finally broken the chains that bound him. But it was short-lived. The darkness surged back, more powerful than before, and I realized that I had only made things worse. I had freed him from his physical form, but I had not released him from the curse that bound him. Instead, I had unleashed a fury that I could never hope to contain, a force that threatened to consume us both. The room began to collapse around us, the walls closing in as the shadows writhed and twisted, a living entity intent on devouring everything in its path. I felt myself being pulled into the abyss, the weight of my guilt dragging me down into the depths of despair. I reached out for Adam, desperate to save him, to pull him back from the brink, but he was already slipping away, consumed by the darkness that had claimed him. "Rick," he shouted, his voice filled with anguish, a sound that tore at my heart. "You can't escape this. We are bound together in this nightmare." I fought against the pull, but it was no use. The darkness enveloped me, a suffocating blanket that dragged me under, drowning me in despair. As I sank into the depths, I realized that I had not only lost my brother, but had also condemned myself to the same fate, a fate I had tried so hard to avoid. In those final moments, I understood the truth. The past could never be erased. The shadows would always remain, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for their chance to claim another soul. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the darkness as I felt myself slipping away, the weight of my choices crashing down upon me. Together, we vanished into the depths, two souls forever entwined in a tragic dance of despair, bound by the mistakes of our youth. The lake swallowed us whole, and as the surface settled, the echoes of our laughter faded into silence, leaving only the memory of what once was, a haunting reminder of the bond that had been shattered by the darkness we had unleashed. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away. It was an ordinary Tuesday when the package arrived. The doorbell chimed, a sound that typically elicited a cheerful response, but on that day, an unsettling prickle ran along my spine. I opened the door to find a small, unmarked box sitting right in the middle of my welcome mat, drawing my attention away from the mundane world outside. It was nondescript, a plain brown cardboard box, the kind that blended seamlessly into the background of daily life. Yet, something about it felt profoundly wrong, as though it were absorbing all the light around it, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch beyond its mere presence. Curiosity pushed me to scoop it up and take it inside, my heart racing with a mix of anticipation and dread. I set it down on the kitchen counter, contemplating how it had come to be in my possession. There was no return address, no labels, not even a hint of who might have sent it. My mind raced with possibilities, each more sinister than the last. I hesitated, torn between instinct and intrigue, but the lure of the unknown was too powerful to resist. With a swift motion, I peeled back the tape and opened the box, the sound of the tearing cardboard echoing like a whisper of foreboding. Inside, there lay a DVD and a small wooden bear. The bear was intricately carved, detailed in a way that suggested a craftsman's careful hand, yet its eyes seemed devoid of warmth, resembling empty sockets staring back at me with a chilling intensity. I picked it up, feeling the fine grooves of the wood beneath my fingertips, but I quickly set it down, unnerved by its lifeless gaze. The DVD, on the other hand, beckoned me with an inexplicable allure. I could feel a magnetic pull towards it, urging me to uncover its secrets, to unveil whatever dark mystery lay hidden within. I inserted the disc into my player, heart curling with a mix of excitement and dread. The screen flickered before revealing grainy footage that felt uncomfortable to watch, each frame dripping with an unsettling atmosphere. The first scene unfolded in a dimly lit room, where a group of people sat around a table, their faces grotesquely illuminated by flickering candlelight. Laughter bubbled in an eerie manner, mingling with disembodied whispers that crawled under my skin and made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The camera zoomed in on an unassuming individual tied to a chair, their eyes wide with terror, a silent scream etched across their face. I swallowed hard, a knot forming in my stomach as the scenes shifted with an unsettling fluidity. Next, a series of horrific images flashed across the screen, blood, screams, and eyes filled with despair, each moment more harrowing than the last. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back, a realization dawning on me that I was not just a passive viewer, but a participant in something deeply sinister. The people in the video had an unsettling familiarity, as if I could recognize them from somewhere, though I couldn't quite place them. As the hour drew on, the footage twisted from alarming to utterly disturbing, dragging me deeper into its dark embrace. I saw gatherings that took a dark turn, families reunited only to reveal secrets buried beneath years of facade, each revelation more grotesque than the last. The camera captured their interactions, laden with an unsettling tension, their smiles all too tight, eyes darting as if watching for a threat that might not exist, or perhaps one that was always there, lurking just beyond the edges of their carefully constructed lives. I could not tear my gaze away, yet a part of me screamed to stop the madness. Each scene infiltrated my mind, planting seeds of fear that blossomed into paranoia, roots digging deep into my psyche. Who were these people? What was the purpose of this tormenting display? I became acutely aware of the shadows flickering on my walls, feeling the weight of invisible eyes, as if the very air were alive, hungry for my reaction, eager to consume my sanity. When the credits finally rolled, I felt disoriented, as if I had been pulled from a dream or a nightmare. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a frantic drum. I staggered back, trying to process what I had just seen, but one disturbing thought echoed louder than the rest. There was a connection, a web tying me to those haunted souls on the screen, each thread pulling tighter, ensnaring me in its grasp. In a panic, I decided to destroy the DVD. I couldn't bear the thought of it existing in my home any longer, an unwelcome reminder of the horrors I had just witnessed. I fetched a hammer from the garage, my hands trembling with a mix of fear and determination, and prepared to smash the disc into oblivion. But as I raised the hammer high, adrenaline coursing through my veins, I received a sharp knock at the door, halting my breath and sending a fresh wave of panic coursing through me. Who could that be? I muttered to myself, unease creeping back into my mind like a shadow. Reluctantly, I approached the door, my heart pounding in rhythm with my steps, each beat echoing in my ears. I retrieved the chain from the lock, cautiously peeking through the peephole, my breath catching in my throat. What I saw sent chills down my spine. Another package lay on my porch, vaguely similar to the first, its presence a cruel reminder of the nightmare I was trying to escape. There it sat, alone in the warm glow of the porch light, taunting me with its existence. I hesitated, scanning the area for any sign of life, but my surroundings were empty, as if the world had become a stage for my personal horror show, a performance I had not chosen to participate in. Immediately, I recognized that the nightmare had not ended. It was merely biding its time, waiting for the right moment to ensnare me once more. I withdrew from the door, horrified only to feel a presence looming behind me, a chill creeping up my spine. I turned swiftly, but there was nothing there, just the echo of my own racing heartbeat, pounding like a drum in the silence. Nevertheless, I felt the world constricting around me, as if something were inching closer with each breath I took, tightening its grip on my very soul. I sank to the floor, trembling, unsure of what to do next. My mind raced, a whirlwind of thoughts and fears crashing together. I glanced at the tiny bear, its stillness a stark contrast to the chaos whirling in my mind, and that's when I realized the bear wasn't just a trinket, it was a token of something much greater, possibly a key to unraveling the horrific threads woven around me. But what sort of puzzle was I tasked to solve? What dark mystery lay hidden within its carved form? Desperation clawed at my mind, urging me to make sense of the madness. I unearthed the box and DVD from the trash, hastily piecing together the clues I had overlooked, the familiar faces, the disjointed laughter that echoed in my ears. The footage had played out like a carnival for the deranged, designed to entrap those unlucky enough to stumble into its path. And I was yet another victim caught in this sinister game, a pawn in a nightmarish riddle with no clear solution. With dread clawing at my insides, I grabbed the new package, pulling it inside against my better judgment, my instincts screaming for me to turn back. My heart hammered as I cut the tape, fingers trembling with fear and anticipation. Inside, I found a letter, the script loopy and unsettling, detailing my burgeoning fate. I was meant to join the ranks of the forgotten, chained to the perpetual cycle of despair that had ensnared so many before me. No, I whispered, panic rising like bile in my throat. I needed to escape, to break free from this cycle of horror. But breaking the cycle seemed unfathomable, as if the walls were closing in on me, the burden of those trapped on screen weighing down my spirit, dragging me deeper into the abyss. I scrambled for my phone, desperate to reach out for help, but the screen flickered ominously, revealing a message that sent terror coursing through my veins. You cannot escape what is already within. I gasped, realization dawning that the true horror wasn't in the packages themselves, but inside me, gnawed by fear and the desolate knowledge that I was now entwined in a labyrinth of horror with no clear exit. Desperation turned to acceptance as the chains began to bind me, tightening their grip around my sanity, squeezing the breath from my lungs. Every night since, I hear laughter echoing in the shadows, feel the gaze of the unseen following me, a relentless reminder of my entrapment. The wooden bear sits ominously on my shelf, A silent reminder that I am forever trapped in this cycle, a ghost among familiar faces replaying a torment that has no end, a loop I cannot escape. I cannot destroy the DVD. I cannot destroy the knowledge that now haunts me like a steady companion, a specter that lingers in the corners of my mind. The unending package is a lesson, an ever-present reality of the darkness lurking just beyond my front door. Each day I open my eyes, I remember the callous truth that there will always be a new package, a new cycle, and a new horror waiting to unfold. The trap has been set, and I am its unwilling prisoner, condemned to replay this ghostly game for all eternity, forever searching for a way out that may never come. Hope you enjoyed that spine-chilling experience. Now, let's move on to the next creepy tale. Ready to face more thrilling moments together? Let's dive into the next story right away.